First off, here's all my imports in the main application. I won't go over it since it's basic PyQt stuff. We won't be going over all the imports in the first part, but by the end they'll all be used. So anyways, I'll set up my auto typer right now. The first thing we'll be making is a timer widget so that it tracks how long we're focused. No eye tracking or anything since that's unnecessary. We'll just use a simple pause and play button. So we'll make the class, and inside it we'll have to use the super.init so that it's used first and initialized correctly. We'll give it a vertical layout since we want the timer and the button under it, and we'll make the timer a label, which is basically a text field. Then the button is going to be a push button with pause as its default. And we'll set it so that when it's clicked, it'll trigger self.toggle timer. And that'll be a function we make later in the code. The timer itself will be a QTimer object, since that's pretty customized for us. And we'll connect its timeout to update the timer, so it'll add 1 second, as we say here below, with self.t.start.1000. So every time the timer times out, or every 1000 milliseconds, it'll update the timer and we can change it. Then we just have to update the timer at the start of the code, otherwise nothing would happen and it would just be static. So to finish the focus timer widget, all we need to do is add it to the layout and then we're all good. To update the timer, we clarify what hours and minutes are using the double slash operator instead of using weird modulo stuff. Then the label is going to be self.timer_label.setText using what I wrote down. We use printf because otherwise we have to deal with weird stuff and we don't want to do that. Now, to toggle the timer, we have to change the button and read if the button is on pause or play. So, if it's active, we stop the timer and change the text, and if it's not active, we start the timer and change the text again. Next, we'll be making a projects array, but I'll skip it since it's pretty long for my list at least. It'll be displayed as a current mission type of thing, so when you turn it on, you have one big goal to do. You can see some of my projects there. Now to make the home page, we got to do super.init again, and inside it we set another vertical box layout. Then we're going to make the title, and you just make the title whatever you want to call your mini computer. And you can use some CSS styling to make it look better too, like I did. So to get the random mission for the day, we'll use the random.choice from the array, and so the mission will be a label from there. Now we just need a quote to put on the home page, so we use a JSON file for that. So with us opening the quote.log JSON in read mode, we load the file as data, and with that data, we treat it as a big CSV kinda, so we index everything with square brackets. I know it's not actually a CSV, I'm not sure how it works entirely, but we let the quote data be random from the list, and then the quote itself would be quote underscore data square quote, and then with the author it'll be the same deal. So we get quote data from a random choice, set the quote as its own column, and then the author is going to be its own column. The printed quote will use printf, so we have quotation marks there. Otherwise, nothing would pop up. Maybe we could use the hyphens, but I'm not sure how that works. Then we want to add our focus timer widget in, and then we add the widget's title, mission, quote, and timer. And you can change the order they go in to change how your homepage looks. Finally, we add stretch to make everything at the top instead of stretched, which is counterintuitive, but I mean, who cares? And then I'll show you how it looks like. We have the current mission, the quote, and the focus timer right there. Next, we'll be making our projects list and a note log. So to make a project list, we're going to make a queue list widget with the same stuff we did before with the vertical box layout. So we'll make our title queue label projects, use CSS to make the font bigger, and then we'll be incorporating a queue list widget because we're doing a giant list, nothing really fancy. So to get all the projects in that list, we do a for in loop. So we go through that array with every item and add the item to the queue list. And that's basically it. We're done. We just need to add the widget for the title and add the widget for the projects, and that's it. For the notes page, though, it's a little more complicated since we're updating a JSON with our notes every time we submit something. We go through the same setup as normal with QV box layout, all of that stuff. Setting the title as normal, call it whatever you want, note log, research notes, research log. So we do Q text edit to make a big box for us to type in, and then we'll add placeholder text that'll show up in gray when you don't have anything typed. I put write ideas here. And then we add an event filter, which lets us see what's happening in the box. Otherwise, we're just typing, nothing's really happening on the back end. Then we make the log display, which is also a QText edit box, and we set it to read only. So we'll do read.only, set read only true, and then that means we won't be able to type in it, but stuff will still show up in there if we update it. So we'll add our title, our notes box, and a little buffer with a label, and then we'll add our saved notes box. We'll also have to call to load our notes to display since it's just blank until we load stuff in. So I'll make a function later for it. Next, we make a special event filter which looks to see if we press enter to submit. If we press shift enter, it'll skip it. So we make this to look through everything. We check if the notes are being watched and then check if there's a key press. Then check if there's a return or enter key. And then if it's not shift, we save the note. So it's a little bit of a weird if then statement cluster. So if all those 3 checks pass, then we save the note with a function we'll make later, and then return true to make sure we actually received it. Otherwise, we return whatever we got from the event filter, and so if we type like A, it won't go through here and then disappear forever. To save the note, we need to add it to a JSON. So we take the text with a strip modifier, and then if there's nothing there, we just don't do anything as an extra check. So we'll do else return, and then we're good. So we let now be an object for date time, and that is basically its own object. It's not a string or anything. So to make the timestamp, we have to do string from time or strf time, and that makes it typed out and actually nice, and it gives it in the object of a string. So we set up the new entry by making a JSON style array here, with note ID being the string from time with no spaces or anything. And then the timestamp is string from time, all nice and pretty. And then the content is just the text that we typed. We make the file path notes underscore log.json. You could call it whatever you want. You gotta adjust everything. And then we make the data notes underscore log colon square brackets. Ooh. So if the file exists, then we open it as read mode and try reading it just as a little check. So what this check is doing is it's seeing if notes log, its parent for everything else that we're going to put in, exists. And if it's not there, we make a new one. And that makes a new parent for us to type stuff in. Otherwise, it's just a JSON with no parent. So then we append everything with the new entry into the parent notes log, and then we're good. Oh, we have to open it as write mode instead. You don't need the encoding UTF-8. It'll do that automatically. And then we dump all the files with indent 2, making it look pretty, and ensure ASCII is also not needed. And then you use self.notesClear to clear whatever we had in the text box, and then we load the notes with our function that we're going to make in a second. When we load the notes, we need the file path again, and to try and read it like all the other times, so this will just repeat itself. And then when we do want to open it, we add a square bracket as a fallback in case notes.log is not an argument, or it's not there, or it doesn't exist, whatever you want to call it. So that way it'll just return nothing and the box will be blank, and it'll show the placeholder that we put earlier. So then we look through the entries in the log reversed, so that way we put the newest notes at the top. And then we let the time string be timestamp, otherwise it's nothing as a fallback. Content being content or nothing as a fallback. And then we type in everything together, add some format stuff like dashes, and then we're good. And we also have to add an error clause just in case it's not working. And if it's not working, we want to see that it's not working. So we put the text as notes log JSON is corrupted. And now that my auto typing is finished, I'm going to uncomment these and we'll see what they look like. So we have a giant list for all our stuff, and then our notes log is going to update as we type in stuff. So I'll put in today we finished part 1 of the tutorial, and it'll pop up there. And here's what notes log JSON looks like. You can see note ID and timestamp and content as we all had before, with notes log as its parent. And you can see it back in the code.